There are reports of explosions and attacks at several major Ukrainian cities.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is worsening the global threat of hunger and starvation.
The military operation is now underway in eastern Ukraine.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he wants to continue pushing for peace in Ukraine despite the recent escalation.
United Nations and Turkey broke a deal guaranteeing safe passage for vessels from the war zone. I think that this is part of
Starting in the city of Kiev, there has been
Just hours ago, Russian forces began their attack.
The full-scale invasion that intelligence officials had been warning about for weeks is now underway.
On February 24, 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. This marked the largest attack on a European country since World War II, with the conflict's full impact and global repercussions yet unknown. The invasion began with an aggressive address from Russian President Putin in the middle of the night.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима. И для этого мы будем стремиться к демилитаризации и денацификации Украины.
As missiles struck multiple targets in Kiev, Ukrainian President Zelensky chose to stay and confront Putin directly.
Всім добрий вечір. Лідер фракції тут, голова Офісу президента тут, прем'єр-міністр Шмигаль тут, Подоляк тут, президент тут.
This is a premeditated attack without provocation, without justification, without necessity.
Western nations supported Ukraine against Putin, with many leaders voicing their condemnation.
Putin is establishing the pretext for a full-scale offensive.
India and China, the world's most populous nations, did not denounce Russia's invasion.
He's very close to Putin. He's called Putin his best friend. Xi Jinping met with Putin 38 times, and they have a shared view. They both want the West to get out of the way. They would like to see America to decline.
Amid the conflict, one country emerged as a crucial mediator: Turkey.
Turkey is very cognizant of the new realities of the world. The world is not in a position of discussing and solving problems. On the contrary, there is mess and a continuous rivalry among great powers. That is the new reality. And Turkey faced this reality just before other countries.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan, president of Turkey, from Ukraine to Russia to NATO. He wields outsized influence in both the East and the West.
Turkey engaged in security cooperation with Ukraine, energy cooperation with Russia, and served as a diplomatic intermediary between Kyiv and Moscow.
Але я тільки скажу, що дійсно президент Зеленський сьогодні має оптимальні стосунки, в тому числі і з паном Ердоганом, безумовно. Тобто вони можуть в будь-який момент зідзвонитись, вони можуть абсолютно відверто між собою розмовляти, ставити один одному будь-які питання і дійсно розуміти, що це щирі позиції.
С самого начала Анкара очень активно выступала за то, чтобы предложить свои посреднические усилия для того, чтобы военный конфликт между Россией и Украиной был завершен, либо был найден путь достижения компромисса. Мы прекрасно помним те переговоры, которые проводились в свое время на турецкой территории, с тем, чтобы в совместном диалоге с участием, соответственно, российской и украинской делегации найти какие-то возможные пути решения. И, как казалось, тогда были найдены определенные подходы, которые позволяли рассчитывать на то, что будет заключен мир.
March 29, 2022 was a pivotal day.
The next step will be a meeting between the Russian and Ukrainian foreign ministers, paving the way for a potential leaders' summit.
Russia and Ukraine met in Istanbul for peace talks, facilitated by Turkey.
Bir an önce ateşkesin ve barışın sağlanması herkesin faydasına olacaktır. Artık görüşmelerden somut sonuçların alınması gereken bir döneme girdiğimizi düşünüyoruz. Gelinen aşama itibariyle heyet üyeleri olarak sizler tarihi bir sorumluluk üstlendiniz. Tüm dünya sizlerden gelecek hayırlı ve müjdeli haberleri bekliyor.
Negotiators developed a framework for an agreement, highlighting Turkey's significant role in peace efforts. But despite the efforts of the Turkish diplomatic team, the negotiators were unable to reach an agreement.
Military operation is now underway in eastern Ukraine.
There are reports of explosions and attacks at several major Ukrainian cities.
Meanwhile, a different kind of battle began to unfold. The potential effects of the war in Ukraine began to be felt globally. The world's food chain was at risk, with millions facing hunger and disease.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is worsening the global threat of hunger and starvation.
This is a big problem for all of us. This is another reminder that this war in Ukraine is not just about Ukraine, that it has global implications. And you've asked about one of the biggest ones, which is food supply.
The mainly corn and wheat exports have helped avoid a hunger crisis in the Middle East and Africa.
The ripple effects of the war in Ukraine can be felt across the globe. The world's food chain was at risk. Ukraine is one of the breadbaskets of the world, and Ukrainian grain is critical for keeping food prices stable and preventing famine.
I mean, millions of people in Africa and the Middle East and Asia depend on Ukrainian grain. And so the export of that grain, of course, has been severely disrupted with Russia's attack on Ukraine.
Ukraine was unable to export grain due to Russian blockades of its Black Sea ports, exacerbating global hunger. Efforts to export grain via Romania and Poland were insufficient. Russia dismissed these alternatives, declaring any exports legitimate targets in the Black Sea.
Коли ми говоримо про будь-які сектори економіки, які атакуються Російською Федерацією, безумовно є ключові, і Росія це розуміє. І сільське господарство – це один з ключових секторів економіки, який давав нам достатньо великий обсяг експортних доходів. Це дуже важливо. В нас низка регіонів сьогодні, ключових регіонів України, знаходяться якраз безпосередньо або в зоні бойових дій, або поряд з зоною бойових дій. Це Херсонська, Миколаївська область, це Полтавська, Запорізька області, це Дніпропетровська область, це Харківська область. Тобто практично все, що стосується нашого сільського господарства, знаходяться під ударом російської армії як такої. Ця війна про наступні речі. Це знищення української економіки як такої. Її має не бути. Тому вони сьогодні, коли ракетами атакують, чи коли ведуть бойові дії артилерією, наприклад, на сході чи на півдні України, вони знищують частку економічного потенціалу України.
The IMF this week said, quote, the war in Ukraine means hunger in Africa.
Earlier, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that there was a mutual understanding between him and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he's confident Kyiv and Moscow can come to an agreement on grain exports.
It was only with the intervention of Turkey to create an agreement.
The United Nations and Turkey broke a deal guaranteeing safe passage to vessels from the war zone.
On July 22, 2022, the world once again witnessed Turkish diplomacy in action, achieving what no other international actor could, sitting at the same table with Russia and Ukraine. With Turkey acting as a mediator, Russia and Ukraine signed the Grain Deal Initiative, allowing grain to leave Ukraine's southern ports via the Bosphorus Strait and enter world markets.
It's also important to note that Turkey's mediation role did not only happen signing the agreement between the parties, but also in the monitoring and implementation of the agreement on the grain deal. This was an important sign that both sides trusted Turkey with the monitoring and implementation of the agreement as an impartial third party.
Today, there is a beacon on the Black Sea, a beacon of hope, a beacon of possibility, a beacon of relief in a world that needs it more than ever. I want to recognize and thank all those who helped make it happen. To our hosts, President Erdogan and the government of Turkey.
In the face of opportunities and challenges, Turkey became a model for the West on how to navigate Russia most effectively.
The nation of Turkey sits at a crossroads of the world. Both a NATO and U.S. ally, Turkey's connections to the West are important and vital. But Erdogan will go his own way.
The agreement for the Black Sea Grain Initiative was signed on July 22nd, 2022, initially for 120 days. The purpose of the initiative was to facilitate the safe passage of Russian and Ukrainian grains and fertilizers to the rest of the world, especially to the global south, through a corridor, a safe corridor in the Black Sea. Also, our geographic positioning and our legal rights over the straits, for example, put us in a unique position with unique leverage in this case.
Imagine a land that bridges Europe, Asia, the Caucasus, North Africa, and the Middle East. That's Turkey, a unique location, granting the country immense geostrategic influence. With a promising future on the world stage, Turkey can often be found on multiple fronts, from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, and even along the border with Russia. Thanks to the grain deal, Ukrainian ships led cargo vessels through a safe passage in the Black Sea, bypassing minefields, on their way to Istanbul via a designated humanitarian corridor. To guarantee the safe passage of the grain, ships heading to and from the Ukrainian ports were inspected by a multinational team composed of Turkish, Ukrainian, Russian, and United Nations inspectors. The Joint Coordination Center in Istanbul played a critical role beyond facilitating the grain deal. The center ensured no weapons were smuggled by inspecting each passing ship for security.
Что касается зерновой сделки, разумеется, Москва привержена вопросам гуманитарного права. И мы рассматривали зерновую сделку как очень важную, но при определенных условиях, которые были выдвинуты Москвой. В частности, Россия исходила из того, что Украина не будет заниматься акциями морского терроризма в отношении российских портов и российских кораблей. Это во-первых.
Turkey's and UN's role in the inspection of the ships was very important because there were several accusations during the implementation of the agreement, for example. But due to UN and Turkey's mediation, several of these crises were resolved and did not further escalate.
Чому? Тому що, ще раз підкреслюю, якщо хтось думає, що він про щось домовиться з Російською Федерацією, він не розуміє зовнішню політичну стратегію Росії. Росія може домінувати, вказувати, а не домовлятись. Росія не домовляється. Росія продає концепцію «бійтесь мене».
Despite the lack of trust between the two sides, 33 million tons of grain left Ukrainian ports in the year up to July. The United Kingdom reported that over 60% of the grain deliveries reached low and middle-income nations, with wheat shipments alone making up 65%. The World Food Program purchased some 750,000 tons of Ukrainian grain, which was immediately shipped to countries such as Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Somalia, and Sudan. Grain prices eventually stabilized at $800 per ton, down from a high of $1,360. Turkey already balances its active role with a membership in the North Atlantic Alliance. Despite this alliance, Turkey maintains important trade relations with Russia.
Turkey has been a NATO ally since 1952. I don't even want to think about NATO without Turkey. Of course, they're frustrating, and right now they are playing an important role with regards to stopping any further Russian ships from entering the Black Sea, using the authority that Turkey has under the Montreux Convention.
The Turkish Straits Dardanelles, Bosphorus, and the Marmara Sea form a single waterway connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean and the rest of the world's oceans. In 1936, Turkey and 9 other countries met in Montreux, Switzerland, to sign what is known as the Montreux Convention. The agreement guaranteed complete freedom of passage for all civilian vessels in times of peace. In wartime, if Turkey is a party to the war or considers itself threatened, it can shut down the straits to the passage of warships. If Turkey is not involved in the conflict, warships of the nations at war may not pass through the strait unless returning to their base. Turkey's control over the Dardanelles, Bosphorus, and the Marmara Sea was crucial during the Russian-Ukrainian War, as it did not allow any country to pass, including Russia.
At the same time, Turkey also does not allow the U.S. or anybody else to bring ships up into the Black Sea, using their authority under Montreux. I can sort of understand why, but I would like for us, if the U.S. or the U.K. or others wanted to bring ships up into the Black Sea, that we would be able to do that.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he wants to continue pushing for peace in Ukraine despite the recent escalation.
Why is Erdogan stepping into this? I mean, things are complicated enough already as it stands.
Sometimes Turkey is criticized because it is expected that Turkey would be bandwagoning the US or European powers. But you see, European powers are in a helpless position. It is the same with President Biden administration. Yes, they are trying to have a democracy's camp, but they face the war in Ukraine, and they are not able to limit Russia. And this reality actually is something that President Erdogan understood and developed some policies to face this.
Является примером, как две страны, одна член НАТО, другая член, соответственно, Организации договора о коллективной безопасности, тем не менее нормально могут координировать свои усилия. Уважаем позицию Турции, президента Турции, господина Эрдогана, что на первоначальном этапе конфликта России и Украины он сделал все для того, чтобы переговоры в Турции стали возможными.
Turkey successfully followed a very fine line in this conflict, unlike many other international actors. Turkey voiced a strong condemnation of the invasion and declared support to Ukraine, our strategic partner, but also refrained from taking an openly hostile position towards Russia, wanting to leave channels of communication open.
The grain deal expired on July 17, 2023, after several warnings from both parties and Russia's refusal to renew the deal. Russia claimed that the deal had already failed to facilitate Russia's exports of food and fertilizer, citing the removal of Russian Agricultural Bank from the global SWIFT payment system.
After the first 120 days, the agreement was renewed twice, first in November 2022 and then once again in May 2023. But after July 2023, Russia objected or voiced its objections and did not want to renew the agreement. So it was not renewed again after that day.
Ukraine used an armed sea drone to strike a vital bridge that links Russia to occupied Crimea. The weapons are remote controlled.
The day the decision was made was the same day the Ukrainians attacked a Crimean bridge through a sea drone. Just hours before Russia announced its withdrawal from the deal, Ukraine claimed responsibility for the attack. It became the final breaking point.
Зерновой коридор функционировал бесперебойно, и Россия делала все для того, чтобы этот процесс был оперативно реализован в рамках тех договоренностей, которые были. Но господин Зеленский, как президент Украины, он по-прежнему давал команды на проведение актов морского терроризма с использованием дронов камикадзе морского базирования. Была масштабная атака Украины по Крымскому мосту. Это тоже в Москве было расценено как нарушение Украины своих обязательств. И в силу этих причин, главным образом, Россия посчитала для себя невозможным дальнейшее участие в зерновой сделке.
Following the attack on the Crimea Bridge, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan remained committed to the objective and used his influence to try bringing Putin back into the deal.
Додатково про Турецьку республіку. Безумовно, Туреччина одна з найактивніших країн. Сьогодні, з точки зору того, що ми бачимо в рамках конфлікту, в рамках війни Росії проти України. Безумовно, Туреччина пробує бути посередником. Безумовно, Туреччина відповідає за регіон, Чорноморську акваторію, в тому числі, і розуміє всі ризики затягування війни, в тому числі для цього регіону.
The grain deal expired on July 17th, 2023. Despite Turkey's tireless efforts and the overwhelming international reception of the deal, Russia refused to renew it.
Amid this really brutal war, Black Sea Grain Initiative was one of the few beacons of hope for peace. This is what the UN Secretary General said. So it was an example of what we call as a win-win agreement in the mediation field. Everybody benefited from the outcome. Russia, Ukraine, the Global South, even the United Nations. There was also hope that small areas of cooperation, like the one on grain initiative, would spill over to other areas of cooperation between Russia and Ukraine, and even maybe to cooperation on political issues later on.
To this date, the grain deal stands as a remarkable achievement of Turkey's negotiation efforts, with its positive global impact undeniable. Moving forward, Turkey is committed to playing a central role in facilitating dialogue, most recently in the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict.
Leader diplomacy is such an instrument that President Erdogan is using in many instances. So this Turkey's position, mediating position between Ukraine and Russia, is not a coincidence. It's a result of Turkey's policy. Whenever there is a problem, Turkey is there.
Multiple Turkish planes have been sent to Egypt containing medical supplies, food and blankets for Gaza.
A Turkish ship arrived yesterday carrying 10 tons of supplies. Turkey says the delivery will be finished before Ramadan ends.
Turkey's growing reputation as a facilitator and its consistent ranking among the world's top donors indicate a future path committed to resilience and global responsibility.